The next item of business is consideration of Business Motion 16025 in the name of Jamie Hepburn on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau on changes to today's business. Any member who wishes to speak to the motion should press their request to speak button now. And I call on the Minister to move the motion.
Move, Presiding Officer.
Thank you. No member has asked to speak to the motion. Therefore, the question is that motion 16025 be agreed. Are we all agreed? The motion is therefore agreed. The next item of business is topical questions. And at question number 1, I call Ben McPherson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government how it is responding to reported increases in instances of youth crime and antisocial behaviour.
Minister Siobhan Brown.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And can I take this opportunity to wish you a Happy New Year and all members of the Scottish Parliament a Happy New Year. I was, of course, appalled to learn of the recent criminal incidents in the member's constituency, and I know that police are actively investigating to identify those that are responsible. The Scottish Government remain committed to preventing children from getting involved in offending behaviour and taking action to stop any re-offending when they do. We work with partners to deliver a range of activities. For example, we expanded the Scottish Violence Reduction Unit's work and delivered knife crime prevention education to practitioners and young people across Scotland. I know it is of cold comfort to victims, but recorded crime is down 40% since 2006 to 2007. And as of the 4th of November, Police Scotland has reached 16,600 officers, with further intakes planned throughout the year. And in 2025 to 2026, we will increase police funding to £1.62 billion. And additionally, the First Minister will host a cross-party youth violence summit next Monday, the 13th.
Ben McPherson.
I thank the Minister for that answer and welcome the initiatives underway, particularly the last point that was mentioned. And I just want to say, first of all, I raise these issues in Parliament with no enthusiasm, but feel I must do on behalf of those I represent. As was referenced last year in my constituency, I received correspondence about many very concerning instances of youth crime and antisocial behaviour, including threatening people with weapons like axes and knives, theft and robbery, unprovoked and sometimes very harmful assaults on other young people and passers-by, the harassment of women and girls and vulnerable people, dangerous driving of motorbikes, e-bikes, push bikes and scooters, clipping pedestrians, stealing phones and generally causing alarm to pedestrians and drivers. And all of these things usually done while wearing menacing balaclavas and with a sense of being above the law. This is a very, very small minority of Scotland's young people who are engaging in this criminality, but I worry that the problem is growing and it is now very serious in Edinburgh. It's increasing in frequency and the severity of violence is worsening. I've received almost weekly, very worrying correspondence from the communities I serve in recent months. And for example, in December, a mother and daughter were reportedly attacked by a gang in Leith. And just before Christmas, a boy was stabbed by a gang of youths elsewhere in Edinburgh. And the issues around bonfire night are well known. A trend is emerging in Edinburgh, and I know, unfortunately, it's happening elsewhere in Scotland too.
I will have to ask you to get to the question. Thank you.
Sure. Therefore, I would be grateful if the Scottish Government could outline, beyond what's happening next week, which I very much welcome, how it intends to respond to this situation in 2025.
Minister.
Thank you. The incidents the member has mentioned today are totally unacceptable. But the member is right, it is a very small minority, but I very much recognise the impact on those directly affected as well as the communities that are affected, and therefore the need for continued relentless focus to tackle any rise in violence. Addressing the root causes of crime, undertaking effective preventive and diversionary activity and ensuring appropriate enforcement are critical to safeguarding our communities, which is why, for example, the Scottish Violence Reduction Unit have been working to develop a community of practice for over 100 police school liaison officers across Scotland, and the independent working group on antisocial behaviour that I established is also expected to publish its findings shortly, and we have committed to act on its recommendations.
Ben McPherson.
I welcome that because unfortunately a trend is emerging, exacerbated by social media, sometimes enabled and encouraged by adults and potentially influenced by organised crime. And as I appreciate the Minister's reassurance to Parliament there and the public that the Government will use its convening abilities and I hope also its legal powers backed up with necessary resources to support Police Scotland officers, other statutory services and youth workers, and to focus efforts across agencies to tackle youth crime and antisocial behaviour this year. I think the fact that the First Minister is convening the meeting next week is really significant. If following that, and it would be appropriate, I would be grateful if the Minister could consider also hosting a meeting in Victoria Quay in Leith, in my constituency, with key stakeholders and partners to discuss the situation further and how we tackle it together.
Minister.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I am very happy to discuss with the member having a meeting at Victoria Quay in the future. Our priorities are also reflected in the budget, which, if it is passed, will increase police funding to $1.62 billion to support the capacity and capability, including almost $57 million in additional resource funding. As I had previously said, on the 4th of November last year, Police Scotland did confirm that the service had reached 16,600 officers, and our priorities are also reflected in the budget. And if the MSPs back the Scottish Government's budget, an additional £3 million will be made available to Police Scotland to help to tackle retail crime specifically. Good collaboration between partners is essential to tackle this issue effectively, and we're also ensuring bespoke interventions and supports are also provided through social work and third sector interventions such as the Includems ADAPT programme, supporting children and their families involved in offending. We also continue to support the Cashback for Communities programme, funded by money recovered through the Proceeds of Crime Act 2002, and we are investing in projects helping to deliver a positive future for our children and young people.
Thank you. We have a lot of interest in this item as ever, and I'd be grateful for concise questions and responses to enable more members to be involved. And I call Sharon Dowie.
Presiding Officer, the impact of youth crime and shoplifting in retailers is worse than ever. The organisation Retailers Against Crime say losses to stores last year were at their highest since 1997. They are also in no doubt as to why this is. They've told me that because there are little or no consequences from the courts for shop theft, criminals feel free to reoffend at will. These people are dangerous, organised criminals who not only steal but attack and intimidate staff and shoppers. There have been multiple incidents already in 2025. As it stands, the only ones facing the consequences from the violence and abuse are the retailers and the victims. Meanwhile, the perpetrators get off scot-free. When will the Scottish Government show some common sense and get tough on these individuals so they know that their actions will have consequences?
Minister.
Thank you. The Scottish Government totally recognises the significant disruption and harm that retail crime causes, and we condemn any violence against retail workers and recognise their vital role in our society and want to ensure that they are protected. The Protection of Retail Workers Scotland Act created a statutory offence of threatening, abusing or assaulting a retail worker, ensuring that the seriousness of this behaviour is highlighted. We support the innovative Scottish Partner Against Acquisitive Crime led by Police Scotland and retailers, and we encourage retailers to report all crimes to the police and engage with the innovative Scottish Partnership Against Inquisitive Crime led by Police Scotland and retailers. Our budget, if it is approved by this Parliament, will make an extra £3 million available in 25 to 26 to tackle retail crime.
Martin Whitfield.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And I welcome the Government's commitment to avoid the involvement in youth crime and antisocial behaviour by young people. So can she confirm that she will recognise the crucial role that youth work plays in addressing youth crime and antisocial behaviour? And I know that she won't acknowledge this, but there has been a detrimental impact because of government cuts. So should youth work become a statutory footing for young people to avoid their involvement in youth crime?
Minister.
Thank you. And the increase in the Scottish Government's budget to local authorities will assist with youth community projects. One of the things is also our hugely successful Cashback for Communities programme, which supports young people most at risk of being drawn into antisocial behaviour, offending and re-offending. And it delivers positive outcomes of future work in all the 32 local authorities across Scotland and prioritise giving opportunities to young people aged between 10 to 25 in the bottom 20% of the most deprived areas in Scotland.
Alex Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Adults commit antisocial behaviour too, and the Minister will recall my exchanges with the First Minister on the floor of this Parliament about the scourge of antisocial behaviour by adults driving high-performance vehicles around the village of South Queensferry in my constituency. I'm very grateful to the First Minister for his engagement on this topic, and he assured me that we were making progress towards the establishment of a national task force oversight group that was going to be chaired by the Minister. I wonder if she can update Parliament on the progress towards that group.
Minister.
Yes, thank you. I do know that Mr Doris and yourself, we are meeting with Police Scotland, Mr Fairley and others in the future, and we will be including other members in the future on a working group for the off-road vehicles to see how we can look into this antisocial behaviour.
Thank you. Question number 2, Pam Gossel.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on its progress in tackling child sexual abuse in light of the reported calls for a full UK national inquiry into child sexual abuse by grooming gangs.
Minister Natalie Dawn-Innes.
Child sexual abuse and exploitation are abhorrent crimes which have devastating impacts on victims. Now, we are taking direct action through the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry, the terms of reference for which were established following extensive public consultation with survivors of in-care child abuse. The inquiry is considering the current legislative policy and practice framework to prevent and address child abuse and will set out where it considers changes are required. Now, given the importance of these issues, we are not waiting for the inquiry to report and have established a child sexual abuse and exploitation national strategic group in October 24 with operational partners and other expert stakeholders, including the former chair of the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse in England and Wales, Professor Alexis Jay, to review current actions and agree where additional focus is needed to better protect children from abuse and exploitation.
Gossel.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I thank the Minister for the answer. Let me make it clear that this is not my intention to label any ethnic groups, but rather to shed a light on this issue as a whole, rather than leaving it to people like Elon Musk. Presiding Officer, the stories we hear from young girls that were victims of grooming gangs are heartbreaking, and I would like to use this moment to thank all the brave survivors for coming forward. In 2020, in the Barnardos, Scotland and the Scottish Children's Reporter Administration launched the first national study of child sexual exploitation in Scotland. It's now been more than 4 years since the report was published. The report made 15 recommendations, many of which were for the Scottish Government. Therefore, I'd like to ask the Minister how many of the report's recommendations has the Scottish Government implemented?
Minister.
We have made progress in delivering the outcomes sought by Barnardo's report, which made recommendations for a number of agencies involved in the response to child sexual abuse in Scotland. For the Scottish Government's part, this includes public-facing campaigns on child sexual abuse and, more recently, on the risk of online sexual exploitation, remaining committed to the promise and its transformative support for families in need, established a national contextual safeguarding group supported by Child Protection Committee Scotland, and continuing to embed care and risk management processes to assist local authorities with identification, assessment and management of children displaying harmful sexual behaviour. Now, improving understanding of childhood sexual abuse and exploitation is essential, but any data must be gathered in a manner that minimises the risk of re-traumatisation of victims. Data about reported concerns of child abuse or neglect is collected by Police Scotland and reported nationally in a monthly dashboard. And this data set is currently being extended, which will provide a more in-depth analysis of characteristics and trends in abuse and exploitation. Improvements in training have also been carried out by the Scottish Children's Reporter Administration, with child sexual exploitation is now addressed within children's panel members' pre-service training.
Gossel.
Whilst recent attention has been on grooming gangs in towns down south, I echo Kemi Badenoch's calls for a national inquiry. It would be wrong to think we are immune from this problem in Scotland. Major police investigations, Operation Dash and Operation Cotswold, have uncovered grooming gangs operating right here in Scotland. A third investigation, known as Operation Serrar, revealed the existence of yet another grooming gang, but despite this investigation taking place in 2016, it appears to have been covered up for 4 years before the brave work of journalists revealed its existence in the public back in 2020. So, can the Minister confirm if she is aware of any ongoing police investigations into grooming gangs in Scotland? And if there is to be a national inquiry into grooming gangs, will the Scottish Government do its bit to help facilitate its work?
Minister.
As I said at the beginning, this is an extremely serious matter, and I'm sure that the member is aware that I am not able to comment on ongoing police issues or police activity. Now, as I've already stated, the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry is ongoing and its terms of reference were established following extensive public consultation with survivors of in-care child abuse. The terms of reference task the inquiry with investigating the nature and the extent of the abuse of children in care in Scotland and include tasking the inquiry with identifying any systemic failures that allowed that abuse to happen. Again, I am very clear that this inquiry is independent and it is the responsibility of its chair, Lady Smith, to decide on exactly what is examined by the inquiry to fulfil its full terms of reference. Now, the Scottish Government will carefully consider any recommendations made by the inquiry to improve the protection of children in Scotland. However, as I've already set out, evidence from inquiry hearings and its findings are already being considered as part of ongoing improvement work, and the Scottish Government are making a number of moves across government to improve and support children and young people who may be at risk of this.
Thank you. Again, concise questions and responses would be appreciated. I call Claire Hawley.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. In her earlier answer, the Minister spoke of the National Child Sexual Abuse and Exploitation National Strategic Group, which has been set up by the Scottish Government. Can the Minister update Parliament on how she envisages this group will both support survivors of sexual abuse as well as prevent and tackle child sexual exploitation? And can she provide details on the issues that they will be looking into this year?
Minister.
Absolutely. So, as I've already set out, the Scottish Government is already working closely with partners to deliver a coordinated multi-agency response to preventing child sexual abuse and exploitation. However, in recognition of that need to go further, we've established this new group to provide that national leadership and further improve our shared response in Scotland to child sexual abuse and exploitation. Now, the group met on the 18th of November and again on the 11th of December, and it brings together key stakeholders, including social work, police, health and education, local authority reps, expert practitioners, charities, research and academics. And as I've stated, it includes the former chair of the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse. Now, the group will share outputs of its discussions shortly, but I am pleased to report that there was significant progress made at the first meetings towards identifying some potential priorities, and work is now underway to further explore these priorities with the aim of identifying actions for the group's consideration when it meets again in the coming months.
Colleen McNeill.
Scotland has had its own sexual abuse scandals involving children, and one of the well-reported cases, Operation Planet, were an investigation into alleged abuse of young boys recruited for sex work, many of who were in care. It is not included by the inquiry. I would like to acknowledge the presence of the First Minister, John Swinney, who has been personally dedicated to this historical child sex abuse over many years. I wrote to Lady Smith last year to ask for the inclusion of these types of cases of children in care who were abused, who are currently not. I hope to have the Minister's support for that. But can I also ask the Minister to confirm that their commitment to continue to invest in the survivors of child abuse gives the support and the practical support of those adults who have survived child sex abuse?
Minister.
Thank you. So, as I made clear in my previous answer, the inquiry is independent, and as I know the member alluded to, it is responsibility of its chair, Lady Smith, to decide on what is exactly examined by the inquiry. Now, I didn't catch the member's full question, but I believe it alluded to support for victims of this behaviour. Now, I've already laid out some of the actions that the Scottish Government are taking to support victims, to look at what more actions can be taken to support victims. I would also just draw the members' attention to our ongoing investment and commitment to Bairnshouse, which is transforming victims' access to the services that they need. And I'm happy to pick these further discussions up with the member if she would like.
Ms Regan.
Officer, there are, of course, parallels here with other areas of child safeguarding failures, where whistleblowers have been vilified, intimidated and shut down. And a civilised society must not rely on the bravery of a few number of whistleblowers. It's the government's role to make sure that the system supports people like the police, like the social workers, like the care home staff, to do the right thing. These girls were failed at every turn by a system that was meant to protect them, even in some cases criminalised for their own abuse, which is sickening. My unbuyable bill allows for a debate and a vote on commercial sexual exploitation, placing the shame where it belongs on the perpetrator. So can the Scottish Government give assurances that this has not and is not happening in Scotland? And is the Government confident there has been no such cover-up here?
Minister.
I think I've been very clear today that although I have set out what the Government are doing to tackle this, that I am aware that there is still a way to go to fully provide the support and eradicate this behaviour. So as I said, the working group has been set up, the inquiry is ongoing, there are actions being taken that will help with this situation. If the member would like to discuss any matters specifically with me in terms of, other things that we could be doing to help with this, then I would be more than happy to pick that up with the member.
Thank you. My apologies to those members who have not been able to reach. That concludes topical questions.